Who was Richard Trevithick, and why is he important to the history of steam locomotives? Let's find out in this episode of Richard Trevithick was born in 1771 in Cornwall, England. His father was a blacksmith, and from an early age, it seemed that Richard was destined to follow in his father's footsteps. However, his father died when Richard was just 12 years old, and his mother then sent him to work in a brewery. Although this may seem like a lowly occupation, brewing is actually quite a sophisticated chemical process, and it was here that Trevithick learned the skills that would later allow him to design and build his famous steam engine. When he was 19, he married and had a son, then moved to London where he worked as a plumber. But soon he began to experiment with engines, and in 1802 built his first Cornish beam engine. These were small engines that could be used for pumping water out of mines or driving machinery. They consisted of a vertical cylinder with a piston that moved up and down, which was connected to a crankshaft by means of a connecting rod. This type of engine was well suited to the mining industry in Cornwall, where Trevithick got his start, but it was not without its problems. The main issue was that because the parts were made by hand, they often broke down. In 1804, Trevithick developed a new type of engine that featured a more efficient cylinder and piston arrangement, which allowed it to operate at lower pressures. This made it much more reliable, but it was still not without its drawbacks. The major issue now became the boiler, as the water used to produce the steam was often contaminated with impurities such as sand, dirt, and limescale, all of which caused the boiler to explode. So Trevithick began experimenting with different types of boilers in an attempt to find one that was more reliable. By 1808, he had designed a boiler that was made up of two separate units, each with their own set of tubes. This allowed the boiler to operate at a lower pressure, making it much safer, but also meant that if one of the units failed, the other one could still operate. This innovation led to a significant improvement in the safety of steam engines. And in 1812, Trevithick was awarded a gold medal from the Society of Arts for his work on improving the reliability of boilers. But Trevithick wasn't done yet. He continued to experiment and refine his designs, eventually producing an engine that was much more powerful and efficient than those produced by his competitors. In 1816, he patented a new type of locomotive that featured a set of driving wheels connected to a single axle, which made it much easier to maneuver. It was also much more powerful than previous designs and could pull loads of up to 30 tons. But there was still one major problem. Although Trevithick's engines were incredibly powerful and efficient, they were very expensive to build. This was mainly due to the fact that they were made by hand, which was not only slow, but also led to a lot of wasted material. In order to make his engines more affordable, Trevithick began working on a new design that could be mass-produced. In 1825, he patented a new type of engine that featured a number of interchangeable parts. This was revolutionary, as it meant that if a part broke, it could be easily replaced without having to manufacture an entirely new engine. It also made the engines much cheaper to build since they could be mass-produced. Unfortunately, Trevithick died in 1833 before he could see the full potential of his invention. But his work laid the foundation for the mass production of steam engines, which would eventually lead to their widespread use in transportation. Although Richard Trevithick is not as well known as some of the other pioneers of the Industrial Revolution, his contributions were no less important. Without his innovations in steam engine design, the development of railroads and steamships would have been greatly delayed. Thanks for watching. Now you know something about Richard Trevithick, the man considered to be the father of the steam locomotive. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Also be sure to leave a like or comment, as that really helps us out. And if you want to watch more of our videos, you can do so here. Thanks for watching.